Hello. So we are now in video 2 for week 1. In video 1, we talked about high level the differences between microeconomics and macroeconomics, how and why they are both important for a manager to understand for the decision making purposes. We talked very briefly about demand, supply, and equilibrium. Okay. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper into demand with some examples, and then we will talk about some of the factors that we hold constant when we talk about demand and what that means. Okay, so let's begin. Um, Start with a definition of demand in terms of some numbers. Okay, and you don't have to worry too much. We are not going to go into extremely theoretical stuff here, but it still helps to take a look. um, let's think about it this way. So again, demand, you have the definition here, the functional relationship between the price of a good or service and the quantity demanded by consumers in a given period of time, all else held constant. Yes. So it's talking about external, right? Customers, how much good or service do they purchase for a certain number, for a certain price, and how that change when price changes. So if you look at the graph on the right side, you can see on the y-axis there's a price from 0 to 7, and then the quantity is 0 to 5, right? So roughly you can see that when price, and let's say this is this is reflecting your sales for your pizza company, the pizza shop you're running. Okay, so what this is showing is, for your pizza company, for if the market price is $1, you can see that roughly about 10, you sell about 10 pizzas. When the market price is $2, when the price is set at 2, it comes down to, say, what is this, maybe 8 or so. At 3, it's about 6. About when the price is 4, it comes to about $4.50, etc., etc. Okay, so 4.5 counts. The exact number is less important than to know that when price increases, right, the quantity sold comes down, or the other way, as price comes down, the number of quantities sold, purchased by customers, goes up. That is the most important thing here to note. Does that make sense? It is what is called an inverse relationship. As price goes up, the quantity demanded comes down. As price comes down, the quantity demanded goes up. Okay, makes sense? Okay, so if that's the case, we noted here that we have to assume certain things constant. And that's an important topic, important theme for managers to keep an eye on. Let's take a look as to why that's the case. Okay, so there are some non-price factors that influence demand. For example, taste and preferences, and we'll go into details of each one of these in a little bit. Income, prices of goods related in consumption, future expectations, and number of potential consumers. Let's take a look at each one of them and what it really means. Okay, tastes and preferences. So what it is it's how potential consumers feel about a good or service, and how well a good or service meets a consumer's desire. So now we are talking about things that are beyond numbers, how consumers feel, their desire. I'll give you one simple example. When I was in Plano back, several years back, when I was working at PepsiCo, I remember Walmart decided to start a swanky new version of themselves in Plano. Plano was a pretty rich, well-off county in all of the United States. So instead of their traditional blue, it was all green. They had really high-priced wines. The aisles were all spread out. They had expensive jeans, all sorts of things, targeting a much different clientele than what they would usually do. Okay, what turned out was they were not very successful. Okay, so what happened? So they did all of their analysis, right? They did, so for example, if they were trying to sell the jeans, they did all of their analysis to know, at $20 they would sell 25 of them, etc., etc., etc. But none of this really worked out. Their desired outcome on number of the units they were expecting to sell for a certain price for jeans did not work out. Why would you think that's the case? Well, if you think about jeans and things that are supposedly worn by teenagers, what they found out is teenagers really didn't want to buy things from Walmart or want to tell their friends they got the jeans from Walmart, or at least the teenagers they were targeting. So that was something that was beyond what was captured in price, in the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Hopefully that makes sense, because when you add tastes and preferences, the quantity demanded could move drastically from what you expect. So the key here is twofold. One, you always start with an understanding of what is the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Then you overlay your expertise, your market understanding, your understanding of your customers on top of it to say, okay, how might that change? So the numbers might say that at $20 you might sell 1,000 jeans, or at $50 you might sell 500 jeans. But have you tested that theory? Because there's a probability that if there is a taste and preferences thing that's coming in there, which is a non-price factor, that could affect the numbers that you're expecting to sell. Okay, so that's example of taste and preferences. Okay, and there are lots of these examples that you can think about in real world. Second is income. Here, the idea is the level of a person's income affects demand, because demand incorporates both willingness and ability to pay for the good. Does that make sense? So let's think about this, right? Go back to your pizza company example. You're running pizza, right? You're selling pizza, and you have a really good understanding by looking at your past sales for the past 3 years that you've been running the company as to at what price do you sell what number of pizzas a week, right? But let us say, for any number of reasons, a new big employer came into market, or people's income for whatever reason significantly rose. You are not doing anything different. The quality of the pizza is the same, everything else is the same, but suddenly the income level of the person who was buying the pizza went up. Would you expect there to be a change in quantity demanded for your pizzas? It's likely, right? Because the people who are buying pizza, if their income went up, there's a chance that instead of them buying, let's say, twice a week, they were buying pizza, now they're just buying once a week, and they're going to, I don't know, Olive Garden instead of that second pizza type, right? So they might have upgraded themselves, so to speak, from pizza to somewhere sit down. That's a likelihood. Same thing could happen the other way too. Let's say a big employer moved out of town, or people, it was in one of those towns where people were losing jobs. People's income is suddenly down. There is a good probability that you don't do anything different, but suddenly your the number of quantity demanded, or the number of units you sell, comes down because people have cut down on eating out, right? So again, point here is you always start with the relationship between price and quantity demanded, and then you start thinking about what you know about customers, what you know about the market, what you know about everything else, and then make your adjustments as required. Make sense? Okay, so that's income. Oh, by the way, there's an important point here. If an increase in income causes a person to buy more, then for that person, that item is supposed to be a normal good. So, for example, in this case, let's say steak. Studies have found that when a customer's income increases, they tend to buy more steak. Okay, so that for that person, steak is said to be a normal good. It has nothing to do with the quality of the good. It's just an economic term. So the question might be, if I know that my income is increasing and I buy more of this thing, is it a normal, or there's another version of it, inferior? The answer should be normal good. Okay, so then the reverse is there as well. If a person's income increases and that the person tend to buy less of it, then that item is considered to be inferior good. Again, this is nothing to do with the quality of the good. It is everything to do with economic term. Okay, let's talk about it one more time. If the income of a person and the quantity that demanded is in inverse, it's said to be, sorry, in the same direction, it's said to be a normal good. Meaning, if a person's income decreases and they buy less of, say, the steak, then steak is a normal good. If it is in inverse relationship, then it's called an inferior good. So, for example, in a hamburger, what has been found is if a person's income increases, that person tend to buy less of that hamburger, which makes somewhat sense, right? They would go for something else. The same thing on the other side. If a person's income decreases, it's likely that hamburgers are bought more, and so that becomes an inferior good. So this is a key concept for you to make sure that you understand what's a normal good, what's an inferior good, and how it plays into that price and quantity demanded equation. Okay, so that's the second one. Third, prices of related goods. Does this make a difference, right? So two concepts here: substitute goods and complementary goods. What is an example? So what's the definition first? Products or services are substitutes for each other if one can be used in place of another. So let's think about this. Let's say you are you produce chicken, right? You produce chicken and you take it to the market. That's what you do. If you believe that people are interested in proteins, right, and beef is a substitute, right, that would mean that one can replace the other, right? If that's the case, wouldn't you think that the price of beef would impact how you would sell your, or how many units of your chicken is sold? Probably will, right? So if for whatever reason price of beef significantly goes down, there is a good chance that your product is going to sell less. Make sense? Because it's a substitute good. Okay. And complementary goods are products or services that consumers use together. And that makes a difference too, right? So whether it's bread and jam, right? You might want to think about the prices of related goods in that case. So let's say you are the maker of a bread, and suddenly the cost of jams go up. What would you expect your sales to, what happens to your sales? There's a good possibility that your bread sales goes down because it becomes suddenly expensive for people to buy the jam which goes with it, right? It's a complementary good, and then consumers makes a decision on what to do. Okay, so the point here again is there are aspects that are beyond just the price and quantity demanded for your product that you have to consider when you're determining what decisions you have to make. Okay, and then a couple more things. Future expectations. Expectations about future price plays a role in influencing current demand. Does that make sense? Right? So for example, a new car is going to come out. Let's say a new version of a car is going to come out in 6 months. Everybody knows it. Would that make a difference to the demand for the current version of the car? Probably will, right? People are going to hold off onto buying the current version of the car. So what happened there? Nothing changed on the quality of your current car. Nothing changed on your service. Nothing changed on anything else of the customer. It's just the customer's future expectation changed. And that changed the current demand for your product. Make sense? Again, you start off go back to the same point. You start off with your understanding of relationship between price and quantity demanded, and then you think about which non-price factors affect the quantity demanded. And final piece here, number of potential consumers. This makes a difference too, right? So again, let's say go back to your pizza company example. If, for example, suddenly there is major construction going on in the place where you're selling pizza and 1,000 new construction workers are in town, you did nothing different on your pizza. You didn't change the price. You didn't change any of it. But suddenly there is more demand for your product. Make sense? So if you're a good manager, I'm going to go back to this. The summary of this class, this video is that if you're a good manager And if your intent is to ensure that you maximize revenue and maximize profit, you absolutely need to know how much to produce, what price to set. And you look at the relationship between those two from your historical sales, but you then start thinking about broader themes. Is there taste and preferences of my customers that I need to consider when I determine how many to produce? Is there income changes for my consumers which I need to incorporate into how much I set my price at? Is there prices of goods related in consumption that I need to think about when I'm thinking about my product? Is there something about future expectations that I need to think about when I'm thinking about my product? And then finally, is there anything related to the number of potential consumers for my product that I need to think about too? Okay, so again, video one, we looked at demand, supply, and equilibrium. In this video, we looked at demand, some specific details around demand, and then we looked at the specific non-price factors that influence demand that a good manager should be able to consider. All right.